Well, I guess I'll start like when I was 18, I got some really bad news that my stepdad, who I was so close to, passed away. But I found out in the newspaper, and I was just told, like, oh, by the way, did you know he's died? And, I will never forget that moment because my whole body, it must have been like, I don't know how many feelings and emotions I was knocked out with that day. I mean, I still feel a bit shaky when I talk about it now, and it was like over 20 years ago. My whole body, yeah, it was just probably complete shock, utter shock. And I remember going home and telling my mum, and I said, oh my God, I've just found out that, my dad's died. It wasn't my real dad, but, and she was like, okay, we'll get the newspaper, because they weren't together at the time. We got the newspaper and we saw that he had died. And then my mum said, oh, he's probably committed suicide, because he was really unhappy. So he didn't commit suicide, but anyway, so that's what I thought. So I grieved a suicide, even though it wasn't a suicide. So there's me in this traumatic state and didn't know what to do with it. So I just got depressed, basically, like big time depression. And I came in and out of that depression for about 8 years. So from when I was 18 to 26, it was just depression, in and out of deep depression. But while I was like feeling okay, I would want to leave, the situation. So I became a teacher, and I just went off teaching in different countries. And then sometimes I would be depressed, I'd have to come home. Sometimes I would just work through that depression. But it was absolutely horrendous, to be quite honest with you, when I look back now. And by the way, it took me 6 years to realise that I was depressed because my dad had died. Like, I couldn't even admit that to myself because I felt ashamed because he wasn't my real dad. People were saying all this, oh, you're so brave, or you're running away. That's what I would get from people. You're so brave, or you're running away. It's like, well, which one is it? But then at the end of the day, and that's what I realized when I was in Costa Rica. So how many years later was that? That was like probably another 10 years later, that I don't need other people's validation for how I'm feeling. So that was what I realized in that country. Every country there was a realization about myself. And I met certain people who helped me have that realization, where maybe if I stayed in England, I wouldn't have, or I don't know. I think keeping on moving was a good thing at that time. I needed to keep moving. Whereas now, it's different. I feel like I need to stay for now.